Hey folks, Daniel with DCF Garage, and this is the fourth and final video of the critical maintenance I'm doing in me and my wife's VTX 1800. And in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flush the coolant. I'm going to run some distilled water to clean. I'm going to pull out the overflow tank, just clean it, make sure it's nice. I haven't changed the coolant on this bike since I've got it. It's been 3 years, and I'm pretty sure that the coolant has been there for an additional couple of years. So it's past due time to flush the coolant. First thing you need to do, you need to pull out your tank. I'm going to leave a link in the description and in the card up here. So take a look at that so you can see how to pull off the tank. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to drain the coolant, and then we're going to fill it up and run the bike. I'm gonna have to put the tank back because the fuel pump goes inside the tank. So this line here, which is the main fuel line, it is pressurized. So if I try to put any temporary bottle here, the bike is just not gonna run. So we are gonna have to place the tank back in, lower the tank to run the bike, lift the tank, drain the distilled water, see how it looks. If the color's good with one run, then we fill it up with new fresh blue Honda coolant, and we're gonna go from there. Now we need to take out the cover, and these are 5mm bolts, and once we take it out we can see the drain bolt, which is at the bottom of the water pump. So we take that out. That's a 10mm bolt, and because I haven't taken the cap off of the radiator right here, it's not going to flow out. So I'm just going to place the pans just so the coolant doesn't shoot out on the side. So it's going to block the coolant, and then I'm going to release the cap, and all the coolant is going to start coming out, as you can see. Let me just position here, and all right, so now it's coming out. You can see the green coolant over there. Once all the coolant flows out, you're going to go back with the 10mm bolt, and you're going to start to disassemble the overflow tank, which is held by two 10mm bolts and a couple of hoses. So you just wiggle it out once you got those disassembled, and you're gonna take the coolant that's in it and just get rid of it. Then you're gonna go back and reassemble it the same way you took it out. Next, I decided to just get a wire brush and clean my radiator cap just for it to look nice. It was kind of oxidized, but it's still working fine. Now we're gonna go back with a 10mm plug so we can start filling up the system with distilled water. Just gonna assemble everything, put it back together before we go in with the distilled water. Now we have to start filling up with distilled water, radiator, and the overflow tank, but I forgot to film it. So you guys are just gonna unfortunately have to picture me filling up a jug of distilled water. It took about 2.6, 2.8 quarts of distilled water. Now we're gonna go back and get the fuel tank, because in this model the fuel pump is inside the fuel tank. So the main line is pressurized to the engine from the fuel tank. Now I'll just go in and reconnect the fuel pump. Just make sure you put it in the tab and just connect it, no big deal. Now we're ready to reconnect the main fuel line. It's got a couple of washers on the inside and one on the outside. Just make sure you put both of them and torque this to spec, which is 16 foot-pounds, so we can then lower the tank. Actually, before we lower the tank, I'm gonna go back with the radiator cap. Can't forget that. All right, so we're ready to start the bike. I got everything connected. I hope I got the lines, the fuel lines. The cap is closed. This is closed. I got the drain bolt snug. I got everything here. So I'm gonna lower the tank so the gas flows to the right place, and we're gonna start the bike. So this is the first time I'm starting the bike after doing the desmog, the valve adjustment. I did the ground fix. I'm gonna let it prime first. All right, we heard it prime. I'm gonna let it prime again. I'm just gonna let it prime once more. All right, let's try to start the bike. And it started. That's a good sign. It started. Now I'm gonna let it run for a few minutes. Let's drain the distilled water now. Fish that screw. I'm gonna open up the cap. And it's just shooting out that distilled water. And it's still got some green coolant coming out. All right, so it ran through the system. Nice. And it's got most of the green out. Now I'm gonna start put everything back together so I can fill it with fresh coolant. I will start with the radiator. Just gonna fill it up with the blue coolant over here. And it takes about 2.5 quarts, as you'll see. And once that's filled up, I'm gonna fill up the overflow tank too on the side over here, which you'll see pretty soon. Just gonna press the hose a little bit, make sure there's no air. I'll still have to run the bike before I close the cap. You have to run it just like I did in the first round with the distilled water. And we got an unexpected visitor. Just, you know, have to ask him to leave. Now we're gonna go back to normal programming. Once that's done, I'm gonna fill up the overflow tank. It's at the top mark, as you can see. Just gonna close everything up, put the tank back together, run the bike. After it ran for a few minutes, put the radiator cap back on, and once you've done that, you can just start putting everything back together. I'm gonna put the tank back. These are 10mm bolts. So you finish tightening the tank, and after it's finished, you just go back with the seat, like same order that you removed the seat. And it's got the 2 bolts, Allen bolts on the side, and the 10mm bolt on the back. That's pretty much it. Just tighten it snug. Then I'm gonna go back with the side cover, and these are the 5mm. Just tighten them till they're snug. I'll put the instrument cluster back on. Real straightforward, no big deal to get it mounted. Just go easy on the bolts here. These are also 5mm. They also don't need that much torque. That's it. So I finished changing the coolant. You saw me putting everything back together. The bike is running. I'm not going to ride it today. I'm going to ride it tomorrow. I'll let you guys know how it went. I'll do a video on riding the bike because I did quite a lot of stuff to it. So I did the desmog, I did the valve adjustment, I did the ground fix, I did the coolant flush. If you like the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you.